What is mental health? From what you understand from the sessions that you've been, from what your friends have told you, how do we conclude mental health as being? What is mental health? Give me a second. Let me make sure people who type into the chat box also get the response. Yes. Thank you, Christine. How we handle everyday things. That's brilliant. Or what is mental health? Any thoughts on mental health? Any thoughts on how we've been concluding mental, or we've been sort of navigating mental health to be? So, thank you, Christine. The conclusion that, or what we've been sort of grounding ourselves on when it comes to mental health, is the capacity of each and all of us to feel, think, and act in ways that enhance our ability to enjoy our life and deal with the challenges that we face. So basically, how the way we feel, the way we think, and the way we act, allowing us to handle everyday things. Also, because we're talking about the mind, it is important to recognize that a positive sense of emotional and spiritual well-being is required for us to be able to say we have a positive mental health. It has to respect the importance of our culture, the importance of equity, the importance of social justice, and the interconnections that lies between all of these things, along with recognizing the importance of our personal dignity. That is what mental health is. So, since we're going to be talking about stress, let's go about it this way. What is stress? What would your conclusion be if you had a one-time test? Let's say the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You go on there, and this one is the open-ended Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. There's only one question for the $1 million. What is stress? What would you say? I'm assuming people are typing, so yeah, anything that upsets the balance. Yes, anything that upsets our balance. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Rebecca. Something that affects our ability to handle the everyday things. Interesting. Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Our reactions to situations. Oh, thank you. I was waiting for something like that to help us lead into what the actual response is. So any demand that is placed on our body and any demand that is placed on our mind. So any emotional demands we have, any thinking demands that we have, any actual behavioral demands that we get, any demand placed on our physical body is called stress. That's what stress is. So my asking you the question, what is stress, is actually stressful, like, because it's demanding you to think. It's demanding you to, or if I tell a joke, that is stressful to your mind because it's demanding an emotional reaction or an emotional response to that which I'm saying. So any demand that is placed on you is stress. But so if that's the case, then we should all be really stressed out. And the answer is yes, but stress is interesting in that because we usually have the resources to deal with the demands that's placed on us, our body doesn't register it as being stressful. So, for example, I I can stand all right, so it is not stressful. I can carry, like, this bottle is 2 liters of water in here, and I just filled it. So and I'm going to drink it to show people that it is really water, and it's not much. It's not that heavy. I'm holding it up. It's not that heavy. I can put it on my head, and it's not that heavy. My body doesn't recognize any of those things as being stressful. However, if I leave this up here and I let go and I drop it on my head, my body will recognize that as being stressful. That's what they call traumatic injury. You know, when you go into the ED, they always have a trauma ward, right? When the stress on your body, the stress on your mind is more than the resources you have to deal with that stress, it causes an injury, and that injury is called trauma. It's called a traumatic injury. When stress is too much, it's traumatic. Okay, so if I was to uh, pull it back a little and just say that we don't feel stressed as long as we believe or we perceive or we think that we have the resources to deal with whatever the demand is. So, for example, your partner lets you know that, oh, my parents are coming through town. They're flying to, what's an exotic place right now that we all want to go? Um, Zanzibar. Yeah, my parents are going to Zanzibar, and they want to stop by and spend the evening with us before they go. So can you make your favorite, lasagna? Because, like, it's the winning lasagna. And when are they coming? Oh, it's next week, Wednesday. All right. You have That is not a stressful ask from your partner, because when it comes to the resources, which is time, you have it. So no matter how much you cannot tolerate your in-laws, because you have time to prepare for it, you perceive that you have time to prepare for it. It's not stressful. However, if after telling you all this beautiful thing, you ask them, so when are they coming? And he tells you, oh, they're going to be here in like 45 minutes. Immediately, sorry, excuse me. Immediately, you go into that stressful feeling mode. Why? Because you perceive that you do not have the resources to meet that demand. You don't have the resources to meet that demand. So every time that for us to deal with stress is just to have the resources to deal with that challenge, that demand. Every time we have the resources, it's not stressful. Every time we think we have the resources, we don't even start feeling the stress. Right? So every time that stress is building up, it is because we don't have that stress. Now, next week we'll be dealing with anxiety. Next month, I mean, we'll be dealing with anxiety, but I want to bring it here that a lot of the times we get anxiety and stress confused and mixed up. But think of it this way: stress is just the demand. Anxiety is the worry because of the demand, right? So we'll deal more with anxiety later. So now, how does it feel, or how does it feel for you when you're stressed out? So this is on there to help you kind of start you off on and recognizing how you feel when you're stressed out. So how do you feel when you are stressed out personally? And you can put it in the chat for everyone to know. We're learning together. There's not many of us. Or you can send it as a private message to me, and that would not bring out a name calling, or I won't mention your name if that. How does it feel for you when you feel stressed? So when you feel you don't have the resources to meet the demand that is being placed on you, how does that feel? Anybody here Yes, yes. Oh, yes. So chippy, I'm guessing you mean short with others, and you give the responses that they deserve instead of the kind response that they used to, kind of thing. Is that understanding of chippy? Oh, excellent. I'm adding that chippy to my textbook now, to my dictionary. I might use it a couple of times.
That was from Dr. Jody Carrington, Noah. She's like, people are a little bit chippy, and she makes a joke of it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Excellent. Anybody here feel that, sweaty palm sensation? When you say emotional, do you mean you start giggling or you start crying when you feel stressed out? Which way do you swing? Both. Oh, lucky you. Depending on the situation, you swing either way. Oh, nice. I know someone who's just the giggling type. So the moment they feel stressed out, they just start giggling, and it might not be something funny. And actually, it happened at their father's funeral. Like they were so stressed, they just started giggling, and people were like, "What's going on? Like your dad's dead. You think you'd be a little sad and get people to have sympathy with you, but they couldn't help it. That's how they react." I had a session on stress with a Renby with some grades, some 12-year-olds, so I think grade 7 it is. And I asked the same question: how do you feel when you're stressed out? And I got a perfect response that I've been using every time, I every time I do a session. The kid responded by telling me, "It feels like I need to poop, but I can't even fart." And that is a perfect response because the entire body, it's almost like their body is loose and tight at the same time, right? And their internal intestines are very loose and watery, but their entire being is very tightened, right? So that happens. So I'm going to show a little video that talks about how we naturally respond. So a lot of people get stomach aches and muscle tensions, but that is called is the response to stress, right? The stress response, to help us know when we are stressed. And then we're going to break it down a little bit more. See if you find yourself in this video.
Humans, like all species, have self-protective mechanisms to help us survive. Our fight, flight or freeze survival response, the FFF for short, is designed to mobilize our brain and body to fight an enemy, run from an avalanche, or freeze to hide from a predator. Our brain sometimes misinterprets safe situations as dangerous and can set off false alarms. When the amygdala, our brain's watchdog, senses and barks danger, our body enters survival mode quicker than our rational mind can react, leaving it trying to figure out why we feel in mortal danger. When the FFF alarm is sounded, we start to breathe more quickly and shallow, causing hyperventilation, and our heart starts beating very fast. These changes can cause strong chest pain, which many people interpret as symptoms of a heart attack, when in fact it's just a result of the FFF activation, which can be relieved through breathing exercises. As a way of getting you ready for action, blood is diverted towards the major muscle groups. Blood flows away from our digestive system, causing the bladder to relax, and we might feel the need to pee. The mouth goes dry, nausea can occur, and we get the butterflies feeling in our stomach. Blood also rushes from extremities, leaving us with cold hands, but often sweaty palms as the action-ready body starts sweating to avoid overheating. Legs and hands can start trembling and feel weak, while tension starts building in big muscles like the thighs, neck, and shoulders. In our head, FFF alarms cause our brain to focus on negative memories, probably so it can scan them to avoid danger and negative outcomes. We get tunnel vision as our pupils dilate to increase our focus and long vision, but as a result we lose our peripheral vision. FFF activation also reduces our ability to recognize differences in facial expressions. Too much oxygen and too little CO2 can result in dizziness or lightheadedness, which many people interpret as signs that they might faint. But because fainting is caused by a drastic drop in blood pressure, and because the FFF increases both our heart rate and blood pressure, it's nearly impossible to faint when this happens. Over time, depression, anxiety, and high levels of stress all harm the brain's ability to slow or cancel false FFF activations, causing them to happen more often. Knowing the symptoms of false activations makes it easier to recognize and reduce their effects. At Tanky Boxing, you can learn both bottom-up and top-down techniques to reduce false FFF activation and bring your body back to balance.
Questions, comments? I'm guessing that's clear as mud or quite clear. So how do you naturally respond to stress? Since no one it's clear for everyone, we can go on to that one. So the video talked about the fight, the flight, and the freeze responses. But I'm glad when I asked about it in earlier, people decided to share a little bit deeper. There are those people like Krista shared who get very emotional when they're stressed out. Yours response is called being flooded by emotions. So you get so instead of triggering a physical reaction alone, it triggers a significant emotional response. So a lot of people cry, a lot of people just get fits of laughter, and they get overwhelming emotions show up when they're stressed out or when they perceive that they don't have the resources to deal with the issues. Then there are others who fawn, and those who fawn become very, very cooperative. This is where I fall in. And I don't know if it's this group that I shared this experience with, but I fall into this group. And I knew this the hard way. Like when moving to Alberta, we went through Ontario and up north, in Ontario, just between Ontario and the Manitoba border, Kenora. That was the last town we got to, and then we were coming in fall. It was like 8 o'clock, so the sun is still high, and we got to Kenora, and we're like, oh, let's get to the next town, and then we can rest there, because I think we can get to the next town, and then we can rest there. And nobody told us, or we didn't check to make sure that there is a next town from there in that area. There is no next town. So we drove and past midnight, we were both getting tired, and we're like, okay, fine. Since we're not finding any next town, we're just going to pull by the side of the road and sleep. We're on the Trans-Canada Highway. What's the worst that could happen? So we sleep. We wake up in the morning. I get out of the car to relieve myself. And in the middle of the road is a black bear. It's a cub, a black bear cub. And to me, immediately when I see the black bear cub, it becomes the cutest thing I've ever seen. And I just wanted to feed it and make it my pet. Fortunately for me, I wasn't driving by myself. So the moment I say, oh goodness, let me just actually oh my God, look, it's so cute. It should be a pet. When I said that, my best friend who was driving at the time, who was also waking up, saw what I was talking about and called me out on it, called me to come into the car. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Look, we can take it with us to Alberta, and we would have our very own pet. And he screamed at me literally to get into the car. And I literally, and this bear cub is literally frozen in the middle of the road staring at me. And I stopped, walking back to the car and I'm talking about how it would be an amazing pet. And I get into the car and my friend, like literally before I could even close the door, he starts moving, the car starts getting out. And as you know, he moves the car, I see the mama bear stands up. Biggest bear I've still seen since I'm not much of a zoo person. And my response, instead of being, oh my God, that was a scary close call, it was, oh my God, a bigger one. And after driving for a little bit, after the tensions calmed down, I tell my friend that was really weird to have a black bear in the middle of the road like that. And his question was, "Are you okay? Like, why would you want to keep a bear cub as a pet, knowing that the mama bear would be around?" And I was like, I don't know. You know, if you have it as a pet, it's not going to eat you, which is a natural response for me. So I've known that I don't put myself in dangerous positions because I definitely would die because I'll be trying to make friends with whatever is dangerous. I don't see that as an issue. There are others who actually become fatigued. And teachers actually, every time I do this session with teachers, they almost always like confirm this, that you have a student who will be active and jumping off the wall, but the moment you put a test before them, they start yawning and become quite sleepy. Stressful events create a sense of fatigue and tiredness in those people when they perceive they don't have the resources. And the simplest answer is, you know, once you sleep, you wake up, everything is refreshed, right? So if in a stressful situation, you can go to sleep, then when you wake up, everything would either be dealt with or it wouldn't be a problem anymore. Any questions so far about our stress responses? The important thing is to know what your stress response is so that you can actually understand when you are actually overwhelmed, when you feel the stress sense coming in and how, because of how you are responding to situations. So say your in-law comes in and you're tongue-tied and you can't say anything. You're in the freeze mode. So that should tell you that you are stressed out. If they come in and you start giggling, you know, nonstop, like, or you start crying for no reason, you're stressed out. If they come in and all of a sudden you would just want to take a nap, yeah, that's stressed out. Know what your stress response is so that you can know how well to cope with it. Make sense? Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of a coping strategy. When we talk about coping strategies, we can cope with our stress in a cognitive, emotional manner, as we can deal with the feelings of stress that we get, right? Once you change that feeling, we change the stressfulness of it. We can also deal with it psychologically, as in we can think about it and we can try to figure it out. And finally, we can deal with it behaviorally, like we can change the things that we're doing to make the stress go away or to make the feeling of stress go away. So, any questions so far? I'm going to show a video next about the stress bucket, and I think that would help us understand what I mean by we're either cognitively dealing with it, behaviorally dealing with it, or psychologically dealing with it.
Stress is usually seen as something we need to avoid. This is not true. We need stress, and we need our body's stress hormone cortisol to rise and fall throughout the day. Stress helps us wake up in the morning, helps us focus, learn, and remember new things. It's when people experience too much stress and start having difficulties coping that stress becomes a problem. High levels of stress can disrupt the natural changes in the body's stress response system and start to affect our physical and mental health. Over time, accumulated stress can result in false FFF response activations. When trying to measure our stress tolerance, the bucket analogy can be helpful. Our stress tolerance, or the size of our bucket, is a product of our genes, personality, and life experiences, and its size varies from person to person. The water in this analogy is the combination of all the stress in your life. We use the coping strategies we have available to keep our bucket from overflowing. They are like taps that allow water to drain from the bucket. Stress can include training, work, school, relationships, finances, moving, changing jobs, or the loss of a loved one. Both positive and negative experiences will affect the water level. A big bucket can hold more water or stress before it overflows. With a smaller bucket, less water is required for the water or stress level to become critical. While you can't change the size of your bucket, you can make life adjustments to reduce water coming in. You can also learn new coping strategies and stress management techniques to allow water to drain out. Mind tools, exercise, quality sleep, relaxation, and sharing your feelings with friends are some examples of effective water taps. Staying up late, sleeping in, drugs, inactivity, procrastination, suppressing or ignoring problems are examples of unhelpful coping strategies or false taps. They might give temporary relief, but actually result in water flowing back into your bucket. This video was created by Brave, Building Healthy Minds.
Okay, so let's do it this way. Which part of the coping mechanisms would you consider as being sort of psychological in nature? Did anybody note any of those now? Any of them emotional? Or any of them behavior change? That or good taps to drain out the water. So if I put this on, it will help remember. What are some of the emotional taps or emotional focus coping skills and problem focus coping skills that would be helpful? None yet? Okay. So how about we think of an example and deal with it. Let's pick, let's say environmental stress. And environmental stress is just things that are in our environments that is stressing us out. An example would be there's a road construction happening where you live. And so the jackhammer is pounding all the time. So then there is actually noise stress. Like the noise level is above the decibel that with which you're able to tolerate, right? So what are some unhelpful coping skills that we can actually do to deal with that stress? What are some unhelpful coping skills that we can deal with to deal with that stress? What are some of the things that we can do that we think may be relieving the stress, but it's not really doing anything about the stress? Drinking, perfect. I knew that somebody would say that, but yep, drinking and substances. So substances. When we deal with addiction and substance use, and I define drugs, a lot of people become surprised at what I mean by drugs. But drinking is very unhelpful. Immediately, you may get that little buzz that you need to get you to ignore the sound, but the sound's still there, hasn't gone anywhere, and it's actually helping you actually develop an addictive problem or a use problem, right? Because alcohol is not necessarily bad for you because your body produces alcohol, but because your body produces alcohol, you recognize that sometimes, some people want to taste a little something, something. So drinking would be an unhelpful coping skill that they would use. What would be an emotional coping skill? Like something to help with the feeling of stressed out. What would be one of the something you can think of that is emotionally focused or cognitively focused in reducing the stress? Or what can you do about this stress to feel better? Other than drinking, because we know that's bad. Yep, being mindful, walking in nature. Andrea, yes, doing something that brings you joy. Yes, thank you very much. Some people would play their favorite music on blast, right? Like every time I hear my favorite music, I light up, right? So some people might do that. And some people might cry and exercise, yes. That would change the way you feel about the situation. But what is a problem focused coping skill? How can you deal with that specific problem of noise pollution? Oh, a big warm hug, Olaf style. Yes, that is never the wrong answer to any question that I ask. So what can we do that addresses the problem of that noise stress? What can we do? Yep, acknowledge it. How about getting earplugs? Would they help? Getting earplugs, because you can't make the construction go away, you can actually get earplugs to help with how much stress is put on your auditory nerves, just so you can hear it. Go somewhere that doesn't have that noise, yes. But that's if you can afford to be somewhere else, right? So if you don't have anywhere to be, like that's why I'm thinking, you can go to the construction site and ask for earplugs, because the people are so close to the finish line. They're always going to be there. Ask us, yep, will this matter in 5 years? Can I control it or not? That is a brilliant sequence to ask yourself. Name it to redirect focus. Yes. Yes. Fantastic. I love it. Yeah. So I have this sheet that I can send out. It's in the PDF format that I can send out to you. That you can use it yourself to help you recognize that. So what is the stressor in my life? You can get it, you can print many copies of it. What is the stressor in my life? What have I been dealing with it? And has it been helpful or unhelpful? That's the question that, your stress, how have I been dealing with it? Have I been doing any unhelpful coping skills with it? What would change this? Like, what would make me change the feeling of I'm the new one here and nobody else is? And, how can I resolve this pollution, this problem, this stress problem that I have? How can I resolve it? Right? It may be that there is never an answer for the resolving, but there's always an answer for the emotional focused coping skills. So why is it important that we deal with our stress? Well, dealing with our stress creates a sense of self-confidence. It helps us take personal responsibility and personal accountability for our own life. It is a great instigator for positive mental health, because he's like this person, this individual is just at a place where if you're able to support them, you create a new positive thinking attitude. It allows us actually identifying our stress, doing that stress worksheet allows us to set goals and plans up ahead. It makes us a more effective communicator, and above all, it has that physical health checkup that it does. Like if there's too many cortisol hormones in your body, it like it's not good for your physical body. So actually dealing with the stress, including exercise, would actually be very helpful for your physical body. I throw this in there, progressive muscle relaxation, since we've all been sitting in our offices and camping in our offices for so long. I suggest, once in a while, do any of these relaxation exercises to continue moving your body and having it be helpful, like relaxed as we move forward. So again, as I said, I end all my sessions on reminding us how to show love, especially to someone who is stressing out. So who's stressed out. So assess the situation. Assessing the situation is literally with the intention to approach, with the intentions to literally approach the individual to help them. If that's not the case, that you want to help relieve their stress, then don't assess the situation at all, right? Give reassurance and support that the individual needs. Give them the information that is very important in that situation, that yes, it may be scary, but she's got you, or they've got you, and you're willing to listen to them. You're willing to, help them find what they need. Attend to their needs, pay attention to them. Attending to their needs, if you see someone who's stressed out and you go closer and you ask, be prepared to hear them out. Be prepared to listen to them. And that's what I mean by attending, listening to them non-judgmentally. Point the individual to professional help. Again, be a beacon for professional support. You shine the light onto the clients that the professional therapist is going to get, right? So point them to a therapist, point them to a family doctor, point them to counselors, and anyone that would be helpful. Encourage the others to be of support. Encourage them to accept others of people's support. Now, how do you help yourself? Make sure you don't get stressed out. Find someone to talk to on a daily basis. And I say this, no word of a lie. It is one of the biggest helps that you can give anyone. So it is the biggest gift that keeps on giving. The reality is, connect with someone, have that individual be able to just listen without comments or suggestions. Be active. In the video talked about cortisol rising up and falling as the day goes, but being physically active uses up a day's buildup of the stress. So for the whole day, whatever stress that you go through, you carry it into tomorrow. So if you just exercise or you walk even to the point where you sweat, you've used up a day's buildup of stress, right? Stress is very cumulative, and as it becomes compounds, what it turns into is trauma. And that's where we don't want to go, because trauma is really difficult to deal with. Take notice around you, take notice of yourself. Learn something new. I've mentioned here over and over again that I'm learning the saxophone. Maybe if we're lucky by the end of this session, I will bring the saxophone down and I'll play 2 notes to show you how far I've gotten. I recognize the B note and I recognize the C note, and maybe, just maybe, I might do just that. And give back of your time, give back of your energy. It is a great way to deal with stress. Thank you.